Well, Jonathan, such an honor to be sitting down with you.
Thanks,
And
Carley.
I mean, what an epic ride I can imagine this has been over the last couple of years. And I know you've worked with Dallas for so long, and tell me kind of what your mindset is at this moment and where you guys are filming season 3 and the expectation and the hope that, that just keeps coming from this show. It's incredible.
I think most of the time we just sort of sit there shaking our heads, kind of pinching ourselves, saying, look what we get to do for a living and look at the impact it's having. That's kind of been it. I mean, we'll sit down sometimes in between seasons where we'll go to certain events and we'll have dinner or something, and we'll both be like, when we were in a rock quarry in Elgin, Illinois, and 4 years before season 1 of The Chosen ever commenced, could you have imagined that we'd be sitting here? And the answer is always undoubtedly no. Yeah. Nobody ever saw this coming. So it's been
what's interesting though is there's still so much more work to be done to get the word out about this. I mean,
well, that's why you guys are here.
I know. Hey, I'm happy to share the word. But talk about getting into the role. I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but it is so interesting. I mean, how do you get into kind of that mindset of Jesus, on a daily? To me, it seems like it would almost be exhausting, and certainly after a day of days on end of taping, it's so emotional.
I can never get into the mindset of Jesus, and I don't even try. You don't do that. How do you enter the mind of God?
How do you prepare for the role?
I start by praying. I start with prayer, and I go to my faith. I read the Bible. I pray. I go to Mass. I partake in the sacraments. I do the things that fill me up spiritually to prep me for the weeks ahead, and that's how I know that I'm sort of suited up.
Yeah.
The armor of God, literally. That's my armor. So that's the first step, and then the next step is then to do the technical work, which is making sure I'm off book and I'm memorized, and sometimes some days are better than others, or some days it's like the days leading up I'm in another country and I don't get to do the amount of prep work I would if I was just sitting here like waiting to shoot the following week. So you commit to it as best as you can, and for me that commitment is bringing an authenticity to it, a personal and spiritual commitment and authenticity to the role, and I can't do that if my faith is not a part of that.
Speaking of faith, and I think what's so brilliant about this show is that how it's reached denominations, just so many.
Yeah.
Talk about that and how important that is when you talk about really getting this message of who Jesus, was and is, to the globe, the entire world.
I think we've been granted the blessing of this veil of having no specific attachment to a denomination in telling the story, in that it appeals to everyone, but yet everyone feels like this is the Jesus I know in my church, or this is the Jesus I know in my community. Every denomination can claim it as being authentic to themselves. I mean, when does that happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's a supernatural gift that we've been given. And it starts with the people creating it that have hearts and spirits opened to collaborating on a project like this without pretense and without agenda.
Yeah.
It's let's tell a good story about these folks. And here's our roadmap. The Bible is our roadmap. You can't necessarily write a TV show off of with all the characters that we have when there's only a paragraph or 2 words about certain disciples. So we have to carefully and credibly build backstories that could be plausible. And we have a team of independent religious authorities from different faiths that can say, yeah, this could have worked, this could have happened, that would totally work. to make sure that
Yeah.
we're not completely out of our, element. And it's been going great. I mean,
Yeah.
just, people are just attracted to the story and want to know who Jesus is.
You were a believer before you obviously started this project, and for many years, but doing these last 3 seasons and what you've done up to this point, is there anything that's surprised you that you've been able to study or learn about Jesus that maybe, I mean, is it a constant thing of where you're continuously learning too? I mean...
Oh, sure. I mean, I think the thing that gets me is what gets everybody else. Is like I was thinking of Jesus in scenarios that we normally don't think of or see. Jesus waking up. How many people have actually thought of what does it look like for Jesus to wake up after a night of sleep, or after what does he look like at the end of a day of healing hundreds of people, and some who are have blood issuances and all sorts of maladies and deformities, and like, what does that do for him physically, and we get to show those things, and I'm like, I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
And so it's just as exciting for me to get to see these, read these, and play them as it is for people to see them, because I'm like, I get to help create this image of what this could have been like.
Well, speaking of, that's interesting, because I wanted to ask you about typecasting, and if that thought ever concerns you. I mean, obviously you have another movie coming out that's also faith-based, so that makes me think that you're not as concerned.
Preacher with a beard.
But it's got to come up, I would imagine, with future projects. Does that concern you whatsoever? Or are you owning it and saying, you know what, this is my lane, and I am happy to be in it?
One of the first interviews I ever did, I was asked that question: are you ever worried that Hollywood is going to typecast you? And my response is still kind of the same. I said, Hollywood doesn't know I exist. I mean, I've been hired, I've been worked on different shows, but for the most part, nobody's knocking down my door saying, come be in the next Marvel movie. You know what I mean? And that's fine. I'm totally fine with that, because I recognize what I think God is calling me to do in my own life. And I think when you do that, then the agendas flip, the needs change. I don't need any of that. I don't need that. All I need to do is serve the one who sent me. Here to use the gifts that I've been given. So whatever he wants me to do, if he wants me to do one of those movies, then I'll do one of those movies. If you want, like I do a lot of video game work and animation work, voiceover work. All of a sudden, my animation career is picking up. I'm like, this is weird, And I think all of it stems from my fiat, my yes to just serving. The first goal is to serve, and then everything else just falls into place. So if that happens, if I get an opportunity to do something like that, great. My tastes have also changed in roles since doing this. I'm not as interested in certain things as I would have been anymore. So I'm good. I'm good.
Well, because, give you the desires of your heart. When you follow him, your desires change.
That's
so
right.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know it's been a long day, but we appreciate it, and thank you for everything you're doing.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Carley, for being here.
Awesome.
Yeah.